Wow, it's actually really humbling to stand in front of you all today and talk about my leadership journey in the last 2 to 3 years at NextJump. I'm Abhay. I've been a NextJumper since 2016. Just some context on what do I do here. I'm on the information security team for my revenue job. I started off as an intern. I moved to becoming an analyst, and now I'm a director in security. For my culture practice grounds, I started off with our onboarding and benefits team. I got an opportunity to lead some of our intense events, the Super Saturdays and the Avengers ceremony, and I co-lead recruiting with my talking partner, Ramni. So a bit of a context before I jump in to my journey. As you can see very clearly on the picture on the left, that's me in my summer outing in 2015 as an intern. All of you can see me very clearly, but it's that I was very excited to be at NextJump. I had a great time. I was here for 10 weeks, and one of the biggest takeaways that I had from my internship was how I felt so proud to be part of a company that was trying to change the world by changing workplace culture. Which company in the world would invest time and resources and money to better the people that they work with? And I went back to school, and the picture on my right is also one of my proudest moments. That is during my graduating ceremony at Carnegie Mellon University. I had a master's in cybersecurity from Carnegie Mellon, and that was me actually receiving the Student Leadership Award of 2016, of the graduating class in 2016. The reason I'm sharing this context is before I came into NextJump, I was of the mindset that I figured out what leadership meant. I got an award from this great university. I took 5 classes from the Tepper School of Business, which is a great leadership award. But once I came in, the biggest thing that I realized that I wasn't even scratching the surface of leadership until I've been through some challenges and learned a ton about myself in the last 2-3 years. And I want to touch upon some of the themes that I've seen here, especially in the last 2-3 years. I've reflected on the last week on how my journey here looked like, and I came down to these 3 common themes. The first theme that I want to talk about is my personal leadership bootcamp journey. So every NextJumper who joins and becomes a full-time employee goes through this onboarding program called as PLB, Personal Leadership Bootcamp. What do we mean by that is you get time and resources and coaches to work with you to figure out the one thing that is stopping you from being the best version of yourself. We call it as impediment, a backhand in a tennis analogy. So for me personally, my backhand that I realized in PLB was that I was a perfectionist. I'm around perfectionism. I did not want to share or talk about any problems until I have a solution. Looking back, one of the stories that stood out to me was John Allen, who was my manager at that time, gave me a security project that I needed to work on. As with a lot of security projects, it was very time sensitive. And being the new hire that I was, I did not know what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. And instead of bringing it up with the team or talking about it or asking clarifying questions, I decided to sit on it by myself. I started chewing it. I started I'm trying to understand it and spent so much time in the problem because my mindset at that time was I did not want to go to anyone with a problem until I figured the solution out on my own. And I could see how that had consequences on the enterprise and how I learned from those consequences. Though PLB gave me a great opportunity and a chance to deliberately work on myself and realize something that is a backhand, that is an impediment that is stopping me from being the best version, the chance that I got to practice this was through the leadership opportunities that I was given. The picture on my left, on the left, is actually my talking partner, Ramni. That is the time when I started to realize that every decision that I make, everything that I do, it's better off when the two of us start making it together. It is not just me alone in this journey. I have someone else, and that is the first time that I did not start feeling alone. I made a lot of calls. I started sharing the problems even before I started finding a solution with my safety circle. And my first layer of safety circle was Ramni. And we started leading a lot of intense events together. We led our Super Saturday, which was our hiring event, twice. We led our Avengers and our CEO talk together. And what we also realized during that time is how I can start sharing not just with my TP problems before I find solutions, but also share problems with my team so that the team can work together and achieve those problems instead of just me looking at that one problem and trying to find a solution for myself. Fast forward to 7 months down the line, Ramni and I started co-leading recruiting together. Recruiting is one of our biggest culture events at NextJump, and at that time, we had no idea what recruiting meant and what had to be done. And what was even more challenging was that was right in the period of our recruiting season, so we needed to get down and start going at it from the get-go. The other thing with that was the old recruiting team who had more experience in recruiting than we were, who had more awareness around how recruiting works, were actually part of our team. And as you would know, there was a lot of uncomfortableness and a lot of eggshells at that time on how we were leading recruiting, because we did not have any credibility leading recruiting. We did not know what needed to be done at that point. And one thing that we chose to do at that time was we had two options. One, we either do something about those eggshells, those uncomfortableness, or we move away from it and try to ignore it. We chose the easy option at that time, and we ignored all the eggshells and tried to move away from it. But what we started realizing in our coaching sessions with Charlie and Megan was how this theme of eggshells repeatedly started showing up, and how not talking about or showing those uncomfortable truths and eggshells had a bigger impact on the team, and that impact had a bigger impact on the enterprise as such, because the whole team was running on eggshells at this point and those uncomfortableness. Moving on into our summer season for recruiting, Ramani and I decided to spend a lot of our energy and invest in our summer internship program. Internship program happens for 10 weeks during our summer, and as the recruiting leads, we decided to have Jimmy and Yutong as the captains of our summer internship program. 2 weeks into the program, we started to see that the program was going off rails. It was not trending up in the right direction. We did not see signals that the program would end up becoming the success that we wanted it to be. And being our usual selves, we could have at that time avoided those eggshells and avoided those uncomfortable conversations. But we made a call to pull Jimmy and Yutong into a room and have a conversation, tell them how we really felt, how we thought the program was going. And we were pleasantly surprised to see that the four of us got on the same page immediately, started figuring out what those problems were, and tried to fix the internship program. And we ended up having one of the best internship programs that we ever had at NextJump. Moving on, this is fairly recent. That's the third phase that I'm in right now currently. This is, if you see the feedbacks from October that I received, it's basically we got increased responsibility, not just on the recruiting side, where we started tackling recruiting problems that we haven't had in the past, but we also got increased responsibility in our revenue and our security job. As you can see, some of the feedback that I got was around how my tone in my emails is defensive, around how we are micromanaging our teams when it comes to doing something done, getting something done. I especially want to talk about something on the feedback on the right side. So that's October 12th, if you see the date. It's one day before our biggest recruiting event. The Super Saturday in fall was on October 13th, and we got this feedback around how we were micromanaging the team, and it was a punch in the gut at that time. We felt disappointed. We spent so much time and effort and heart into leading recruiting and making this an amazing season, and we received that feedback. We don't know what we would have done in the past, but what we did at that time was we went out for a quick walk. We were in New York at that time. We went out to a nearby park, vented our frustration, talked out about it, came back, pulled all our team into the conference room, and just acknowledged that feedback. We didn't want to solve for it one day before, but what we did do was talk about how we felt about that and what our intention was, where we were coming from, and how what we want to do into going into the biggest event next day. Surprisingly, it brought the whole team on the same page, and we ended up having a great event. So the biggest takeaway for me that day was, even if I don't want to solve for something like that, just acknowledging it and putting the truth on the table is really powerful. So looking back in the last 2 years, it reminds me of this great quote from Steve Jobs. There was no way I could have connected these dots forward. But if I look back, I can see in the last 2 years or so, the challenging times that I was in as a leader is when I've learned and grew the most. Even the phase that I'm in right now is a challenging phase for me as a leader. I'm trying to lead leaders who've done stuff in the past, who've proved themselves in a lot of ways. So it's a challenging journey for me, but I'm sure that 1 or 2 years down the line, when I look back, I can see that this is a phase where I've learned a ton about myself and I've grown a lot from this. Again, it's really humbling to stand in front of you and talk about my journey. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate any feedback that you have for me. Thank you so much.